That's when God said, I can't do anything about these people anymore, and I'll have to destroy the human race. Because man forgot his purpose. There is no purpose. Dear brother or sister who's watching this video, there is no purpose for you on earth. There's no reason for you to take your next breath if you don't understand that you're here to establish the dominion of God on earth. There is no point. There is no reason. And there's so many people who are sitting on their church pews day after day after day after day, living a nice, comfortable religious life, who don't understand that they're not supposed to be here on earth just for the pursuit of their own personal happiness. That is not why God created man. God created man in order to retake the earth, in order for the glory of God to fill the earth as the waters fill the sea, just as it says in Habakkuk 2:14. That's God's intention. And when man decided to live for his own sake, for the sake of happiness, for the sake of contentment, even if you're trying to live a nice moral life, if that moral life is in the context of achieving your own personal happiness, then you have lost your as the French would say, your raison d'être. You've lost your reason for existing on this planet. And that's why God was grieved when he began to get shut out of the human experience, when the redemptive plan that God began to forge from the moment that he punished Adam and his wife for what they had done, that redemptive plan that would lead to the eventual birth of Jesus Christ, and to the plan of salvation that he was going to complete for our sake. That redemptive plan was being cut off because man was not interested in reaching the fullness of his potentials. He just wanted to be happy. He didn't want to take dominion of the earth. He didn't want to restore everything that Adam, the first Adam, had lost in the Garden of Eden. All he wanted was to escape from the punishment of sin, the eternal punishment in hell of sin, and just live a nice, happy life. And God said, that's not what I want. That's not what I care for. That's not my intention for you. I didn't make you for that purpose. And as we said, the word made here is the word asaf, which has the connotation of fashioning. Like, for example, when you fashion, when a bottle maker fashions a bottle, he's thinking about what that bottle is going to contain. Whenever you do something, you do it thinking about the ultimate purpose for that item. So if you're thinking about, say, making a tin, a can, and you think about the food that's going to be put into it, and you design the can in such a way that it will be able to preserve the food and hold the necessary volume that you want, etc. So you're thinking about the intended purpose for that item when you are making it. And when God made man, he was thinking about having man become a manifestation of him on earth, a manifestation of God on earth, a tangible manifestation that could take dominion over the earth. So that is the whole message behind the word or the phrase man on the earth, that is mentioned in Genesis 6:6. Now, one thing that we should also mention as a parenthesis is that problem between pursuing happiness and pursuing dominion is also evident in the children of Israel who came out of Egypt. When they were in Egypt, they were crying out for redemption from God. They were saying to God, God, please have mercy on us and do something to get us out of this bondage. And then God sent Moses, and you know the story that God eventually took the people of Israel out of Egypt, and they went into the desert to worship God. And the problem is that once they got out of the desert, they said, out of Egypt into the desert, they said, okay, we're out of Egypt. The sorrows of slavery are behind us. So now we are here to live a nice and happy life. That's what they were pursuing in the depths of their heart. But then God gave them a surprise. God began to show to them that the reason why He took them out of Egypt was not to make them happy. It was not to give them happiness and contentment and a blessed existence on earth until the day they kicked the bucket and died. That was not the reason. And when they started realizing that God was not had not taken them out of Egypt just for the sake of giving them mortal happiness, which is what I would call that, they began to rebel against God. God wanted them out of Egypt so that they could then go and take dominion over what? Over the promised land that lay beyond the Jordan. But they were unwilling to go that far because all they cared for was escaping from the temporal problems that came with being under bondage in Egypt. And that's what a lot of Christians do. They realize the slavery of their sin. They see the consequences that sin is bringing into their own lives. They realize that things are not right, so they want to get right with God, and they go to church and they become born-again Christians, and at that moment God takes them out of Egypt and puts them in the desert. But the problem is that many of those people then decide, okay, the reason why I wanted the shackles of slavery off of me was that I could go out and live a happy life. And God said, no, I'm not interested in you having a happy life. I'm interested in you having a life full of my purpose. I'm interested in you manifesting my nature and my glory. And most believers are not interested in that. They're not interested in exercising the dominion that God had intended for mankind. And because of that, most of the church are as the Israelites who were wandering in the desert and who perished, shamefully perished, without reaching the promised land and fulfilling God's dominion on earth. So now let's look at another aspect of Genesis 6:6. Let's look at the word grieve, when it says in Genesis 6:6 that God's heart was grieved because of the intentions in man's heart. Now, that word grieve was translated from the Hebrew word atzab. Now, interestingly enough, atzab is very similar to the word asa, which, as we said, means to make, to fashion, to give a shape to something for an intended purpose. So atzab and asa are similar. So atzab, besides being translatable, you could say, as grieve, can also be translated as to shape, to fashion, to stretch into.